and a very good thing happening right now. And that is, what a blessing it is to have Elliot and Joyce Klayman here with us. It's always a blessing. For those of you that may not know, Elliot and Joyce really are the founders of Beth Messiah. We did have like what I like to refer to as an antediluvian period, right, at Ohio State and all that. But really, in terms of a real Messianic Jewish congregation, as we know Beth Messiah to be, Elliot and Joyce came to Columbus and really took that fledgling group and really organized it into Beth Messiah congregation. And a lot of our vision, who we are, how we understand ourselves to be, and how we operate comes from Elliot and Joyce. So we are always just thankful to the Lord, for both of you, very much so. Elliot is the Chief Operating Officer of Messianic Jewish Theological Institute. And he also is the editor of Kesher, the Messianic Journal associated with MJTI. Joyce is the business manager of MJTI. And the Messianic Jewish Theological Institute is an important entity for us in that is where most of our future rabbis receive their training. There's several other schools as well. And Jared Schatz is a student right now. So that is really very exciting. Elliot is also the editor of The Outreach and is the chief operating officer there as well, right, of the Messianic Literature Outreach. And so just very vital to this day in the larger Messianic Jewish movement. Very, very important. So Elliot and Joyce are in Columbus, and as always an opportunity to hear from Elliot. So Elliot Klayman, come and share with us what God has on your heart today. Great to have you with us. Let me give you a big hug. All right.
Thank you very much. Listen, I'm not going to start right into my message, so don't count this time because I've been prompted by so many nostalgic considerations and statements and people that I've just heard and need to say a few things before we get into my message. First of all, as far as the Chow Tran Forward in Faith Tea House, I would rename it today Chow Tran Forward in Faith Organic Tea House. Organic tea. That means caffeine-free. I know. You can do your coffee for that. So that's one thing. The second thing is I'm into connection. I'm a historian, actually. And when you get rid of these pews, I want you to take these off and store them. Okay, it's already in process. Well, that's good. I mean, not that you can read them. but I'm looking toward the archaeologists in the future will, dig them up and we'll decipher them. We'll have all kinds of ways to do that. I also wanted to say something that Jared mentioned about those who have long-time marriages come into sync in a number of ways. And I can attest to the fact that is absolutely true. In fact, it goes something like this. It starts with, Joyce, where's the phone? Where's my phone? Well, it's where you left it. I mean, it usually is, right? And then it's like, well, call it. And it reverses too. I mean, and then, yes, what's his name? He used to live in somewhere in the United States. I can't think of his name, but, we knew him. Who am I thinking of? I mean, it just goes and over. I see the ones of long-term married people that realize that, I mean, it happens like that. What else? I wanted to say that I did not collaborate on my message with Howard, and Howard did not collaborate with me. The only thing he knows is the title, and the title has nothing to do with the message anyway. you know, he knew I was coming, he asked me to speak, and so, I had to come up with the title. Then you fit the message you try to, and the title doesn't always work, So I want you to know that as well. There were other things, but, I can't remember. So much of what I've heard, though, and see is such great continuity, only advancement. I mean, we weren't using the internet that much in 1977. Actually, I think the only ones that had it were the military people somewhere up there in the sky, but they didn't fall down to us. Zoom, forget it, basically. But really, the foundation, I realize, is so important because basically the foundation is here. And I'm so happy about the renovation. And Paul's doing a great job, for sure, on the committee, as the committee head on the renovation. And I think it's been a super team. It's a super team. The ones from Sharei Shalom, 2 women that we know, are really the architects behind this. And, they've got the eye, they've got the experience, they've done some other renovations, and so I'm really looking forward to it. I think now we can start. I want you to know, so I don't go too long here. It's, it says 8:56, but I think it's more like 11:50. I got to add 3 hours, right, from San Diego. It is wonderful seeing so many that I do know, and seeing so many that I don't know, because you have to have that combination, and you have to have growth, and so that's fantastic. So, given that, I want to say that the title of the message is "Making Believers Great Again." One at a time, I added that. Making believers great again. One at a time. I'd like to say that regarding what Howard said 10 times was the word future. I know because I counted them. And the message is about looking toward the future, but that's difficult oftentimes, as we'll see, because we're so filled up with the past, and much of the past is tragic. Our past, I'm talking about. Much of it, causes obstacles, and the present. Hard to get over the present as well. But if we can get to the future, be future-minded, that's what it's all about. And this 1.5 minute video will give us a start. So whenever we're ready on that, we can go for it. All the way up. She could have wallowed in the past, right? She may never have got out of it, and there are many that don't. Forgetting what is behind me, in Philippians 3:13 through 14, and reaching for what is ahead, I press toward the prize for which God has called me heavenward through Messiah Yeshua. We're still living in trying times, and we always will be living in trying times until, of course, the Messiah comes for us. I came into this world between the time Germany surrendered in World War II on May 7th, 1945, and we dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and Japan surrendered on September the 2nd, 1945. My parents never talked about it, and I assuredly was not able to comprehend it at my age at that time. And this was coupled with the Holocaust, which was contemporaneous with World War II, which I only heard about many, many years later. And to this day, 80 years later, I just can't fathom. I can't get a grasp. I can't comprehend the utter destruction, the inhumanity to humanity perpetrated upon humans, by humans, all who were originally made in the image of God. So where was God? And it challenges the ethicality of God, who obviously permitted it to happen. We can rationalize on behalf for God, but nonetheless, it did happen, and nothing happens without God's knowledge. Many lost their faith over the question of God's morality in the face of evil. Scholars have wrestled with this theodicy question. Eliezer Berkowitz, an Orthodox Jewish scholar, I believe that he died most recently, a couple years ago or so. He came through the Holocaust unscathed, of course, but with his faith intact. He believed that God had for that time withdrawn or hid his face, perhaps for reasons that we don't understand. Richard Rubinstein became an Eastern religious adherent akin to a Buddhist with a pantheistic outlook, nature, to explain God after Auschwitz, because that God in his mind was dead, the death of God movement. Elie Wiesel stopped talking to God for a long period of time. Emil Fackenheim formulated the 614th commandment, saying that we should not permit Hitler to have a posthumous victory. Rockmel Friedland, who graced this congregation with his teaching on many occasions, when we were in other buildings, one in particular, recognized that the heart of man is deceitful and desperately wicked, and that God was in the midst. Where was he? He said, and he went through the Holocaust with harrowing experiences and lost his whole family, his mother, his father, and 4 sisters. But he was in the midst of his people, weeping and crying alongside of them in their hopeless plight. On another plane, yes, this was a zenith of U.S. heroism that saved the world from despotic rule, thereby overcoming evil with a source and a sense of good. But to do so, the Allied forces were forced to kill hordes of people, many who were innocent, and over 400,000 Americans lost their lives in World War II. Altogether, 1.5 million Jewish men and women fought for the Allies. 1.5 million. France and the United States, and I think it's counted as Russia too, because initially they were with us, and or not initially, but eventually, I should say. And 250,000 of the 1.5 million Jewish men, and there were women, 1 in 6 were killed. 250,000 Jewish creations of God were killed in that war. And yet it was our finest hour. And I had relatives, uncles, that survived, and one who didn't, who I'll mention. I wonder how fine in the sight of God, whether it was a judgment from God due to mass rebellion against the Creator, or due to God withdrawing for a season for one reason or another. I don't know, but I know that it cost the lives of many true believers. And we also know that it cost the lives of true Jewish believers, called Hebrew Christians because Rockmill Friedland went in to the Warsaw ghetto and snuck in there to comfort them, and he wanted to remain with them, but they said, no, you can pass for non-Jewish, you light complexion, you go out and you tell the world, which he did, in a book called When Being Jewish Was a Crime, and in other mediums. So I haven't even mentioned the 6 million Jewish people, innocent civilians, who died in the Holocaust. No, our finest hour, thankfully, is yet to come, and hopefully we will be a nation that continues to bless Israel, because that's the source of the right side of history. By the way, we've been blessing Israel, continue to do so since its modern formation in 1948, as the first country to recognize Medinat Yisrael as a state 11 minutes after it was declared on May 14, 1948. Thank you, President Harry Truman. And every president since then has been supportive of Israel. Back to the future. A few weeks ago actually, we'll take today, Parsha Chaye Sarah. We had a very depressing opening. It's the life of Sarah, and yet the first thing is she's dead. She's in the grave. The life of Sarah. But that gets us thinking, what really is life for us? Very depressing there. But there were surprising expectations. The life of Sarah is filled with the death, both of Sarah and Abraham, eventually. But there's a curious future-looking event there, which Jared mentioned, that flowed from her death. No one lives, of course, on this planet forever. So Sarah had to die, and she lived to a ripe old age, but even the worst tragedy can be futuristically beneficial. Here, guess what? Abraham is motivated to gain a foothold in the promised land, for which to date he did not own even a scintilla of a piece of sand, but motivated by the death so that he would go out and he would talk to some ites, Hittites, pagans, and see, sometimes you have to do that, and to purchase a burial plot legally. He wouldn't take it as a gift, thankfully. Boy, can you imagine the arguments that the Palestinians would have now if it was a gift? That's not a secure contract, but rather weighted out the price. He gave the market price for it, met all the legal requirements of a Hittite real estate transaction of the day. and we have the token of the first promise to Abraham in Genesis 12:1, that he would get a land for a possession or ownership defined by boundaries that well exceed what Israel has today. Well exceed. Solidified later by the physical covenant of circumcision. The physical land, the covenant of circumcision. The complete fulfillment has not happened, nowhere near. And some of these countries that we think about, some of the Arab countries that surround Israel, won't even be an issue then, because they won't occupy or own that territory. It will, though, according to God, happen. Now, Rashi, the great medieval commentator on the Bible and on the Talmud, says that strangers in another land ordinarily are not able to purchase land. They're ordinarily not easily have the money, have the connections, especially back in ancient times. So God gave comfort to him. He'd be a nobody. He came down with, 69 other people or so? And unknown, and yet God gives him confidence. He said, you're going to get a land, and not only that, you're going to be a people, a nation, and your name is going to be known. Huh? How many years later is it? And his name is prominent every single week for sure in the congregation, in the prayers all over the world. And beyond that, we're all studying that Christians, Jews, Jewish believers, and so God fulfills his promise, and it came through death. A piece of promised land that frames the future. That frames the future. A small piece of land that harbored a grave. Sometimes we have to look to the future before we can adequately deal with the sorrows of the past. Sometimes we need to drown ourselves in the future so that we can get beyond the past. For my parents, I'm sure they were torn apart over the tragedy in World War II, especially since my father's brother, my Uncle Benny, before I was born, was killed in the South Pacific Theater when his plane, along with 9 other young men, went down in the South Pacific. They were on reconnaissance, and they ran out of gas coming back. And there were searchers that went up, although it was a very dangerous area where they were in, but they went up to look. They only saw one parachute in the water and no sign of life in it. To this day, Uncle Benny's body has never been recovered, nor the plane, nor any of the 9. One time in Columbus, Ohio, I know I'm going off topic, but it's important for my catharsis. I went into a camera shop. It was like North High, up around there. No, it wasn't North High. It was more in the area of downtown, where the courthouse and the like. I just went in a camera shop. I was going to either get one fixed or I was going to sell one, whatever. And I don't know, an old man came out. He looked old to me. I'm probably older than him now. This could have been 30 years ago. And he came out. His son actually had lost an arm. I didn't ask how. But I happened to say to him, because I knew that my Uncle Benny had come to Columbus, Ohio. And from here, he actually enlisted in the military. He was 32 years old when he didn't have to for some reason. I don't know. But he enlisted in the military. So I said to him, I said, did you ever know anyone by the name of Benny Klayman? And he went white, and he didn't move. And then he said, Benny Klayman was my best friend. He went down, his plane went down in the South Pacific. And that's how I knew he knew. He didn't just say, but it's like, it was like he finished it with to give me assurance that that was true. And I asked, he said, yeah, he and another friend of his owned a horse. And I guess, there's the racetrack or whatever. And so I found out a little bit more. And really that connects me more. And then I tell my cousins, about it, first cousins, of which there were many because my father had 9 siblings, 8 or 9, I forget. In any event, dealing with grief is so agonizing, especially when the decedent, if we're talking about death, is close, as was Sarah to Abraham. I hope by being born when I was, assuaged my parents' pain as they looked forward to a new life with a second child. Abraham, instead of mulling around, down-faced for a prolonged period of time, was sober-minded and intentional as he looked to the future in a burial plot, signaling the beginning of future blessings. An embryonic unveiling of the application of Genesis 12:1, promise many Jews, a promise that many Jews are buoyed by the birth of the state of Israel, with a focus on the future of Israel and a safer place for Jews. Not to mention the fulfillment of the promise of God to Abraham that he would give him a new name that would produce a great nation. Rashi there says that foreigners, they come to the land, they're pretty much marginalized, they're unknown, they don't have a lot of stock, and their foreign name is unknown. With the advent of 70 people in this hostile land, you're not ordinarily going to give rise to a nation, but God gave comfort in Genesis 12:2 that I'll make a nation, make your name great. But God reversed that reality and gave him the assurance that he couldn't get from man. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you, I'll make your name great. And so the rest is history. And we have Jewish people, and we have actually from Abraham, whose name was Avram, a great father, a change. So in connection with the promise of a nation, he gave him a new name. I'll make you a father of many nations, Avraham. Jews today are uncountable like the stars in the heaven, like the sand. You know, they're uncountable. They seem to be so numerous. They're so small in number comparatively, and yet so ubiquitous. They're everywhere, it seems, that you look. I can't imagine. I mean, and, you know, usually you can tell by the last names, not always. But in any event, that's another positive within the Parsha. And another positive that spoke of the future and perhaps temporarily distracting Abraham from the past, which was so dark and dreary without his wife, was Abraham thinking about a mate for his son, Isaac, who was 37 years old. 37 years old. Childless and not getting any younger. His prospects of finding a bride by himself was not very good because he did not or would not or whatever leave the land. He would not leave the land, and Jews were forbidden from marrying, of course, idolatrous women and men. So they couldn't marry Canaanites. Here we have Eliezer, the servant. I don't think it mentions his name in the scripture, but we do use that name, and apparently in other writings and rabbinic writings. He sends his servant back to Haran in Mesopotamia, where the family of 70 came. And there, Abraham, a widower at the time, not much land and one child, kept hope alive through that marriage with Rebekah. Well, not to mention, he almost lost his son through being obedient, you know, through being godly on Mount Moriah, right? Offered up as a sacrifice when God intervened. Sometimes God's answer takes time. The fulfillment of promises don't always spring forth immediately. Abraham worked hard in faith under the will of the Lord to position his family in a place where the covenant of a land and a nation would be possible, foundational, and realizable, and give rise to a future of abundant hope. There's a lesson here that we must keep one eye on the future as we live in the present, and sometimes peek back at the disturbing parts of our past, because God will continuously work with us to show us why even in those sad, horrible times, God had his hand upon us to bring us to a place where we actually not just say, but we believe that all things work together for good for those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. It must have been dreadful for Abraham as an immigrant, being attacked by fears of life circumstances. Yet somehow he found a way through faith and love to overcome that fear. There'll be more challenges to come in our life if we are living for the Lord, as was Abraham. We might put on a smile, how are you? Oh, fine, I'm moving to a place where I say, tell me something good that's happened to you today, rather than how are you? Because there's always a perfunctory response. Oh, yeah, good. But underneath the veneer, oftentimes, of the smile or the response, there's a question: how is it that God permits such despair and dread in my life? Yes, we can be sure that if we're living for God, life will not really be a bowl of cherries, and those rose-colored glasses you can put away in the drawer, because they won't absorb the schmutz that we go through. And schmutz is a word that you just have to hear about 10 or 12 times, and then you in context, and then you realize what it is. It's what you use Drano for, to unclog the mess in your life. Sometimes being attacked at all sides at the same time. You've been there. Some of you are there now. We are all there together, whether we are willing to face it or not. So we need to really search for meaning in our life, wherever we find ourselves. Viktor Frankl was in a few concentration camps, and to survive, he focused on what was meaningful to him. When he emerged, he wrote a book, The Search for Meaning, and developed his theory of logotherapy, which is a counseling approach. And it's predicated on a belief that people fare better when they have a defined purpose in their life and have meaning, because that looks to the future. Having meaning now is not going to help you look, in the past. It's not going to help you, but now and in the future. And they're in the struggles and the jaws of vicissitudes that accompany living with darkness and death surrounding. But if they seek meaning, I would say that lines up with God's thinking and God's word of what you really want to do when you emerge from this hellish time. How can your life count? In fact, though not a believer, Frankl, of which we know, he was following the precepts of looking to the future, looking forward, because to be stuck in the past will result in a spiraling fall from a descending staircase, a most difficult place to recover from, and most difficult. But focus on a burial plot and focus on grandchildren and on the garden that you want to plant, on the Bible you want to read, on the prayers that you have neglected, but not to wallow in your past circumstance and pain until you're ready to see the causative hand of God directing your life because of the past to where you are in a joyful or dismal present, which may be a clarion call for your days ahead. Only then will we be able to emerge with a readiness to confront the difficult past. Don't go there until you're ready. God will ready you. And the antidote, I'm saying, for readiness is the future. I mean, we have enough of the future in the Bible, to focus on. There's no, and for us, it's all good. Not for everybody, but for us as believers, it's all positive. So then we can confront the difficult past, and then we can see in the past how we got here through God's will in the present so that we are ready for the future. It's it's like the butterfly who struggles in that what chrysalis, I think, chrysalis, struggles in there to break loose, and it must be pretty. It wants to get out of there. It must be pretty bad, and emerges as a beautiful butterfly. Or, the pearl forming out of the sand, irritating the oyster, right? And it covers that sand, and it becomes very worthwhile for us. So sometimes living between the tension of the past and the present, we're apt to lose sight of the future. And that's the devil's intent, the enemy's intent. Oh, don't look to the future, when Messiah is going to return, when earth will, heaven will come down and descend, and we'll be in a millennium, we'll be in a period of just positivity and be living right there, face to face with the Messiah. We're apt to lose sight of the future and a meaningful promised life ahead of us. So the search itself for meaning, why did this happen, is as healthy as the find and a prelude to it. Recovering addicts become drug counselors. Women who have had abortions go into the field of counseling. Those contemplating abortions and those who have had abortions and other issues as well. People who experience family members who have been charged criminally may go into criminal law or some form of law and be lawyers to help others work through the criminal system. Holocaust survivors go on to tell their stories eventually in a way that helps other people who experience childhood issues and adult issues. And then people who experience illness go on to become doctors, nurses, or go into an allied medical field. Those who suffer disabilities go to overcome those disabilities, as Beth Hamilton, you see, did, the surfer. Or one bit by a rabies-infected dog goes on to become a veterinarian. Now, of course, I'm being simplistic here. I was 2 weeks from death without intervention for my stage 5 kidney disease. Stage 5, that meant that my kidney failed to remove the toxins from my body and was distributing poison throughout it. I was in denial. I was stubborn. Now, I was not facing reality. I wanted time, more time. I didn't want to go on dialysis. I wanted a live kidney. And I thought somehow that things would work out. Now, I will say that Joyce and my kids held my arms up to the extent that they could, but I had to make the decision myself. Nobody could make me do anything that I did not want to do, and that's the same with you. You are not going to be forced to do something that you're not willing to do. And without which, me doing it, going on dialysis for the time, I wouldn't be alive because I wouldn't have been able to receive a live kidney. At the end of the ordeal, I found meaning and thankfulness in the crises. I saw that people in whom I had invested my life in, Messianic believers who grew to be my family, did really care, and they demonstrated it. I found out that I had a wife and children, see how we're doing, and so many friends and acquaintances who were ready to donate their kidney if they could. And of course, most cannot for medical or other reasons. I found meaning and thankfulness in the advancements that the medical community had made and their co-partnership with God, whether they knew it or not, in discovering antidotal responses to diseases through nature, which of course God created, innovation in that which they work together to achieve an enduring effect, positive. So I wanted to give back, to give more of myself, to get involved in being better equipped to help others, to become more educated, to be a better rabbi, not only in name, but in deed also. I told God, at times some might think it was a mistake, but I don't think so. But I told God that I was available for helps. And I brought Joyce here for this one reason. She's a witness that the phone has not stopped ringing. The text messages and the emails and the messenger has not stood silent, not to mention the mail and the face-to-faces. I found meaning in the future. I found meaning in the future, and you will too. But right now, you're living in the present, and that's great, because there's hardly any problems that she has to wrestle with at this stage. But she will, and you're preparing her for that. Fantastic. And leverage on my personal kidney crises to raise spirits of hope for others. I mean, I want to be a better person. It makes, when you face death like that, and even when you don't, we all want to be better servants for the Lord. Not always me within the medical arena, although I do like that, and so far I haven't been charged with practicing medicine without a license. So conclusion, Abraham was forced to look to the future because by doing so, he was exercising the faith that indwelt him when he believed in God. He focused, in a sense, on Am Yisrael. Am Yisrael. He focused on the people of Israel. Chai. Lives. The people of Israel live. I would be derelict if I did not apply this message to current political situation in the U.S. and the obvious schism within the body of Messiah as a result. Okay, when I say make believers great again, it is obvious that it is a contrast to the mega movement, right? However, I'm not talking about humans making humans great again or even humans making a nation great again. No, I'm talking about God making believers great. God making believers great. Yes, I'm talking about a co-partnership where God provides the faith, some of it coming through hearing the Word of God, and believers moving on that gift that they have been given. When I talk about again, make believers great again, the question is, well, when were they great? Again, I'm talking about going back. Now you're able to go back to the place where you initially experienced God, for many of you, and excitement and immovability in the faith. Nothing could move you. Nothing. I'm talking about the times when you were in fellowship with other believers and you shared your faith enthusiastically as the Lord led, and you prayed and walked in the Spirit and fellowship with God in sync, not rotely, but instinctively wed to a godly outlook with firm and unswerving commitment to God's promises with every breath and pulsing heartbeat in accord with the Lord's calling on your life. Now it is time to remember that past and derive from that past and from those experiences a renewal in your faith. And faith is not just a belief. Faith gives impetus to action, Those times of immersion in the Ruach HaKodesh, in the prefatory words of one rabbi who 45 years ago, when he came to our house, I wasn't there, but Joyce was, and he kind of was very young then, 45, younger, 45 years younger, actually. And he was a little nervous, is the report from my wife back then. And he's so nice, he didn't want to. He said, do you read from the New Testament? And which I don't know what your response was, but of course we read from the New Testament. It was kind of puzzling because we thought we were pretty well known out there. But in any event, in the prefatory words, since he said that, I want to use some prefatory words. May I suggest that you look forward to a future in God and focus on tying the hurts of the past with your present situation now, both causally linked as you move forward from the present with focus on the future hope as we all together in love experience the making of believers great again, one at a time. For God has spoken for us in Isaiah 43, 18 through 19. Forget the former things. And I'll say, for now, do not dwell on the past. Listen carefully. I'm about to do a new thing. Shabbat Shalom.